Hi, I'm Jana Evans of the Kansas City Urban Potters.
And I'm Meredith Host. We have 6 total members for the Kansas City Urban Potters, but we'll be the representation today.
Showing you around our shop. So let's get started with some questions.
All right. How we started?
How did we start? When was that?
It was early 2014, and a few of us met up at a coffee shop and we're discussing possible ways of teaming up and forming a group to have a holiday sale. And, quite a few of us had home studios, and it's kind of awkward to have people come into your home. So we thought if we were able to rent a space together as a group and be more professional, like sort of setup, instead of come on into my garage or the basement. So that's how it started.
A big component for me, also just having my studio in my home, was connecting with other people. I had been maybe like meeting up with someone for coffee here and then meeting up with someone else there. And that was kind of feeling like community, but not really. And so this really gave us a platform to holistically create specifically a Potter community in Kansas City. There are so many Potters here. And so this was just a way of kind of organizing it. And that was really one of my main goals. But overall, as an organization, we do have a mission statement with many goals.
One being, promoting contemporary ceramics and pottery in the region as well as the Kansas City area. So our 6 members are all here in Kansas City. We work kind of spread out in the Midtown area, either through personal homes or through our shop space, which you'll see later. And then a few of us work out of Belger Crane Art Studios also.
So one of the main things we talked about at that first meeting was how Insika was going to be coming to Kansas City shortly, and how we could maybe do a Kickstarter and get funding so we could build shelves to apply to the expo area.
And as well as use that for our holiday sale, so that we were a cohesive look too.
Mm-hmm. Instead of taking Meredith's shelves for her sale, Alex's shelves from his sale, so we could overall work together, aesthetically design shelves, build them, and an investment that we all made that we could all potentially use as a group or individually.
And you mentioned the whole investment aspect. We did form as an official business. So we're an LLC, and the 6 members are all equal owners. So we all have a vested interest in this going well. And, actually treating it as a business also.
We all did financially contribute.
In the beginning,
the beginning.
So we could have a bank account, and part of the reason why we actually became a legit LLC was thinking about the holiday sale and how would the checkout system work? Would it all be individual sales, or would it have a centralized checkout? And with the centralized checkout system, I was pretty convinced that we had to be legit. As far as having a bank account and all that.
You're just the brains behind the whole business aspect. We'll just be honest about that. Meredith is the brains.
I have definitely fallen into the position of, treasurer and dealing with the tax aspects and all that. It's not that I enjoy it, but I am, a little more familiar with it, the self-employment business thing, and kind of doing, or I attempt to know the proper ways of filing and all that. So that we all kind of have fallen into the roles that maybe are our strong suits also. And that's something that's great about us as a group, that we all kind of bring something else to the table as far as business aspects.
Sometimes we work collaboratively on those different aspects, and sometimes individually. It just kind of depends on the event or the task at hand. And that is the nice thing about having 6, is that it's small enough that we usually can find time to meet and get together, and it's not so big that you're trying to schedule with like 20 different people navigating that.
And we are all here in town, so we're able to meet in person and not remotely or through, Skype or something, which I think is helpful. And our meetings still are pretty intensely long just because there's a lot of decisions to make. And so, I would say we meet once a month or every 2 months, but mostly every 4 or 5 weeks.
Leading up to our big events, it's almost weekly.
Yeah, there's a lot of, we're not going to lie about the group texting being like an insane thread.
Which sometimes is able to resolve our communications and we won't need to meet, but often a group thread text will be so long we decide we actually need to meet and have a robust conversation to hear everybody's opinions so we can make the best choice for the group.
Yeah, and so when we started out with this holiday sale, and actually just forming as a group and a business or a collective, we decided to run a Kickstarter campaign. And that was to just kind of get the upfront costs of one, building our furniture and shelving and some of the business aspect costs, like startup things. Like we all contributed personally, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So
I think designing the logo is a major. Coming up with the Kansas City Urban Potters or KC Urban Potters was fairly quick, but the logo that is attached to it was multiple meetings.
Yes, and we had a friend in town, a graphic designer, Patrick Sullivan, work with us for that logo. We didn't come up with it ourselves. We brought in, professional who does this for a living. And so with the branding and then paired with a Kickstarter and doing it basically as a reward system, people are buying pots, but we're donating our work. So then the money goes to the organization. And it was a successful campaign. I think that we were pretty realistic with the initial goal so that we could meet it. And then had some, what is it called?
Stretch goals.
Yeah, that's the word. Stretch goals. That helped fund a couple other things that we had hoped for, but we wanted to make sure we actually got the funding. And it was pretty amazing that the support of the community, locally as well as the ceramics community, nationally, as well as just, other people that not in the clay world buying work and supporting our cause.
It was amazing, especially as such a newly formed organization to feel the love from the ceramics community and Kansas City people. Yeah. And originally we didn't have a shop in mind, but that was something that evolved from those stretch goals where we thought maybe Kansas City has a really robust First Friday scene, so we were thinking maybe we could have a mobile gallery. And then once we kind of started looking at the logistics of that and the rent in Kansas City, the costs seemed reasonable, that maybe we could have a storefront. And some of our members were looking for studio space, and so why not kind of combine those things together, which is how we've evolved to where we are now. So we have 3 studio spaces in addition to the storefront that we have.
Right, yeah, initially Alex Watson was looking for a studio space and kind of got a lead on this building. There's the property owner owns this entire sort of corner of lots of different little storefronts and seemed to be extremely supportive of creative businesses. So rent was affordable enough for us to come to the group and say, okay, this might actually be a possibility to open up a retail shop, which was not something that we had
nowhere near.
So I think that because I kind of thought this might be our only chance to give it a shot. And because it was affordable, especially when, we're only the shop's only a quarter of the space and then the rest are studios. So, kind of sharing in the cost and the utility aspect of that. So we decided to give it a go. And we signed the contract for the lease actually right after the Kansas City and Sika in 2016. And then began another long process of, we almost probably could have done another Kickstarter just for this space, but We applied for some grants locally through Charlotte Street Foundation.
Warhol Foundation.
Yep, and the program we applied to was the Rocket Grants, and basically applied as the collective with the space that we wanted to shop, also studios, a place where people could come and actually see some of the work being made, so that there's more of a connection of the handmade and what goes into making our pottery. Also just to show like we're actually here in the urban core of Kansas City making work, as well as we wanted to do some community events. So we applied to the Rocket Grants through Charlotte Street and received a research grant, which was an initial like $2,000, which helped us start renovating the space because it was pretty raw when we got in here.
There's a reason we were paying such a good rental fee, because it had decades of paint and love, shall we say.
That's a nice way of putting it. So there was a lot of sweat equity put into this space, getting it ready, even just to be, you know, kind of just a studio space.
Yeah.
It was not ready to go. So I think they were actually, the people we rent from gave us a discounted initial like 3 months rent or something, knowing that there's no way you could actually be in here yet. And that helped too.
And they also worked with us, so they put in an upgraded HVAC system, an electrical panel, for the kilns, and gave us more secure doors and new windows.
Yeah.
So they really worked with us, and that was a really great and easy process, fortunately.
Right. And the Rocket Grant allowed us to actually, you know, get all the tile out of here and like refinish the floors and paint and do all that, and, you know, get some signage. Because we're actually at a pretty decent like corner here at Main Street and Westport Road. It's kind of a intersection.
A thoroughfare.
Yeah, that's the word. Good old thoroughfare. So to have some visibility with our name, like with a big sign, I think has been really helpful too.
And one of the things, as our members were participating locally, regionally, in some of the fairs that are around, people were saying, "Oh, I want your card, can I come to your shop?" And so that was kind of just another kind of notch in the column of, we need a storefront. Because a lot of times those people take your card and then they somehow like misplace it somewhere and they never follow up. But we actually get a lot of people that say, "Oh, I saw you at this art fair, but now I have this wedding gift that I specifically am looking to buy from you." And it has really helped a lot. And I think just for people in Kansas City to know that we are here and available, and people really have liked supporting local artists.
Yeah,
I'll say.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to say you have a space that you can come all year round, not necessarily just during that weekend art fair.
Yeah.
And I will say that the art fair thing, like locally, has been great to build up our mailing list. That's something that I regret personally not doing sooner, is getting a mailing list going. But we found, you know, that's a great way to reach out to the community, that we have an event coming up, and our events are really well attended, which is awesome. The second part of the Charlotte Street grant, the Rocket Grant, because we received initially a portion of what you can apply for. So we got the research part, and then with the ability to reapply the following year for more of like development of a project. So total it's a $6,000 grant. Initially we got the 2 so we could reapply for the 4. And so we did that, which was not as intensive an applying process because they already knew us. But we applied for developing the Midwest Pottery Fest. And that's what our sort of, so we had a holiday sale and then a spring invitational. And the spring invitational, we thought kind of sounded a little formal. and we were like, we're kind of interested in rebranding it. So the secondary grant helped develop the branding and extra costs involved in starting a brand new sort of event, or the event that's been involved into the Midwest Pottery Fest.
And we also decided just to focus on the one sale a year. So while some of our members are involved in holiday sales, Kansas City Urban Potters personally just hosts the Midwest Pottery Fest. And that way we were able to really expand what we're doing and make it really more robust in the events that we're offering, and hopefully more fun also for the artists that we're bringing into town, because a lot of us go out of town to these different pottery sales, and that experience is also a big draw. So we want our artists to have fun in Kansas City with us, and we want to have fun with them. And kind of through that evolved what we call the Potters Potluck.
Mm-hmm.
And
the dish.
And the dish.
Well, I think that we could say, this Spring Invitational, which morphed into the Midwest Pottery Fest, essentially there's the 6 of us, the members, core members showing, and then we invite 6 other nationally recognized potters to show with us. And we try to have, I'd say, 2 of the 6 be local or more regional potters, and then, people from all over. So
within that, we are trying to balance, though, like the clay types that people are working with, the surfaces that people are working with, so that we can really show Kansas City the depth of what's happening in contemporary ceramics.
Yeah, we definitely want the variety. We don't want it all to be, similar.
Right.
We want to show it off. So, the Midwest Pottery Fest is now, it'll be in its 4th year. And I feel like we've been actually pretty successful in building and growing each year as far as the audience, with sales, and just attendance. And certain things have been implemented in to help with promotion and marketing. The second year we decided to do like a little cup sort of freebie giveaway for the first 50 people in the door. And I mean, it worked. There was a line. I about cried. I'm not a crier.
We were all flabbergasted.
So we'll probably talk about internships more later, but as part of our internship program, we had our interns help us design and produce sort of small little drinking cups for this giveaway that have our logo on them and stuff. It's not necessarily one person's style. It's just kind of we come together to design it and figure out a production aspect for it. So they're all sealed up in little sandwich bags, so no one knows what they're going to be, and there's kind of the element of surprise. And we have a line, and that is also a way of getting all of a sudden 50 people in the door immediately. Mm-hmm. And that's been really successful. A part of the weekend also are demos and artist talks. And we've found that, when there's more of an education component, people, when they see or learn how something's made, there's more of a connection to it. And they're maybe more interested in taking it home with them.
And also just an appreciation. Maybe they realize how long something takes, or you just you never know what people are going to grab onto that they're just wow.
Or even with an artist talk, giving a little more specific details of why you're making this thing versus how, and that extra content and education has proven to be really great.
That's something we send out surveys, and time again, that's something that people are constantly. Some people say you need hour-long demos.
I mean, these are free demos, so we don't want to give it all away.
Exactly. So just a teaser.
The one complaint is they're they should be longer. It's okay, well, we're giving you some stuff for free.
Yeah.
Giving you a taste.
Just a taste.
But okay, so our main event is Saturday, Sunday, and another little promo that we've done on Sunday is a flower bar. Do you want to explain what that is?
So with the flower bar, basically anything you purchase, we have florists on hand and complimentary flowers, and they'll make an arrangement in that vessel.
Yeah, even in a cup.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a vase.
No, or and sometimes the florists are more kind of like Ikebana style, so a beautiful bowl can look amazing with the right flower and greenery. So,
and this past year we had like locally grown flowers. Was it Cozy KC? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's always nice to partner up with someone, because then a lot of times she'll send her email list to her people saying, come to this event. And, for people that are really interested in flowers, maybe they haven't thought so much about the display aspect of it. And so maybe it's something that they all of a sudden are opened up to what kind of vase or vessel is good for that, and become our audience also. And we can share.
Yeah. So yeah, those are kind of the freebie, giveaway, the demos, the talks, as well as the flower bar are kind of our bigger promotional marketing key points, I guess. But then after hours on Saturday kind of turns into a different, bigger event where we call it Potters Potluck and the Dish. And the Potters Potluck is basically a potluck that we invite the greater KC clay community. And I mean, we're talking 3-4 hours sort of vicinity. There's a lot of us here in Kansas City and beyond. So we invite as many people as we can, and our mailing list grows for that too, to just kind of come and hang out and, potluck with handmade dishes. And we encourage everyone to bring their own plate. And it's kind of fun just to see what people bring out of their collection.
Yeah.
And then the potluck turns into another event called the Dish.
So the Dish is kind of like a la Moth Radio Hour, where we have the one and the only fabulous Mo Dickens. Historically, he has come and emceed for the night, where he introduces anyone in the audience who has prepared a story. Sometimes the night will have a theme. So first time
it's like clay, community, creative process. We're pretty open to whatever.
As long as it falls in that umbrella.
Which is pretty large.
Yeah. And so it's just a nice time to hear about different stories, how people inherited or purchased their first kilns, or any number of kilns, or scary ghost stories from studios. But it is like Clay Geek Fest, and it's amazing, and maybe my favorite night of the year.
It is. It's so much fun. And there's funny stories. There's also sentimental. You just never really know how it's going to go.
Yeah. But it's just a time for the clay community to come together, and that last half hour is just reserved for visiting with friends and meeting new clay people, welcoming anyone new to the clay community to Kansas City, and a chance for everyone to get to know each other and reconnect if it's been a while. So some of the funding that we got with the Rocket Grant was earmarked for educational purposes and outreach. And so that allowed some of our members to go and do demonstrations at an elementary school, at K-State.
Yeah, we did demos and firings, wood firings there, as well as kind of professional practice sort of lectures too at K-State.
And we were also able to fund a high school student to attend a local ceramic artist workshop, which was really nice.
Yeah, it's basically a sponsorship. As also part of that Rocket Grant for the first Midwest Pottery Fest, we reached out to the local high school teachers for art programs and said, if you have a couple of students or one or two that seem to be really pretty invested in the arts or interested specifically in ceramics, we'd like to invite them to the Midwest Pottery Fest, and part of the funding we were able to have them we allowed them to pick out like a piece, and it was part of the grant that paid for it. So the artists were paid, the kid, the student got to go home with something, meet the artist and come home with a handmade item. And so that was actually pretty cool to see them picking out, and
it was magical. And a lot of times that student, they would pick probably their favorite artist that was there, and they would go and like watch the demonstration and then talk to the artist, and then like to be able to pick out a piece, you could just like see them light up, and it was really great to be a part of that.
Yeah. So that was kind of like some of the community outreach we've done, and then within the shop space, we are at a busy corner. So that's some of the community outreach we've done outside the space. But inside of our retail space, we have events that we typically do final Fridays. We don't try to compete with the first Fridays in town because we're kind of on the outskirts of that gallery district. So we have done most recently an ice cream social event where we asked potters around town to to make bowls specifically for ice cream, and the proceeds were going to Wayside Waste, which is a no-kill shelter in town. So we call it Dog Days of Summer Ice Cream Social, and I think that it's going to become a yearly event. It was pretty awesome last month. And then the curated table, I'll give it back to Jana here.
So we have our curated table, which also extends into our storefront windows. And it's a space where we rotate usually local artists, or just like, as it sounds, a curated show. So our next one is going to be a collaboration show. So the Kansas City Urban Potters working collaboratively with other people, just as another way to diversify, bring other artists in, maybe expand our audience.
Yeah, it's not just the six of us showing all the time, just to make it fresh.
And we really like to bring in other regional, local ceramic artists just to highlight them within the area as well.
As far as like other resources go, for the Midwest Pottery Fest, we have we reach out to a lot of the organizations in town, like the clay centers as well as schools, to have volunteers help us, and they kind of get an inside look into the whole process of the event and how it all happens, and they help immensely, as well as we have interns from Kansas City Art Institute. That's not every semester per se, but every once in a while we'll have one or two interns that help out.
So we divide those internship hours, try to divide it evenly between the shop and all of our members. So in the shop, they're doing things to help us, which could be helping work one of those closing, one of those final Fridays,
so
the receptions. So helping wrapping, checkout, or helping with the actual reception part with making sure we have ice for our cooler and those details that sometimes get overlooked. But also just overall helping in the shop. We have paper bags and we have our logo, so we have to stamp those, each one of those by hand.
There's lots of little tidbit things that go into the business, right? So I would also say this past spring, we did the Insika Expo Gallery booth. So we basically brought our entire shop to Minneapolis, and we invited 18 other artists to show with us. So instead of just being our little shop space, we kind of turned into, I would call a full-blown gallery at that point. And so our interns helped out, when work arrived, we unpacked, we inventoried, we made sure everything matched up, we repacked so that we could haul it to Minneapolis, and then upon return, shipping work back out, making sure everything was, they had a big hand in a lot of the logistics for the gallery expo booth. And then in addition to just help, a few hours here and there helping us personally in our own studio practices, kind of gearing up for Insika, and then a month later was the Midwest Pottery Fest. So it was kind of an intense 6 weeks right there, just because it was back to back. And then they also, part of the internship has been those giveaway cups that I mentioned before. So instead of, we kind of had guidance with them. It was kind of a mentorship thing of saying, okay, we would like you guys to design a couple of these cups.
A few prototypes, and we're gonna help produce them. So, of course, we provide all the materials, and some of their intern hours are to produce the 50 cups. And, usually someone is managing the process along with them. But it's interesting to see them like start a project, start and finish a whole sort of production line, if you will. And depending on the intern, this last set of interns, we had 2 last spring, they were both more interested in mold making, slip casting, and so that's how those cups were formed. And then the spring before that, again, we had 2 interns, and they threw all the cups on the wheel. So it's something where we want to work with them and their interests to think fully through this idea to make it happen. Mm-hmm. So our most recent endeavor is deciding to incorporate an artist in residence. So right now we have a local potter, Becca Bliss, who is working in our studio among our 2 other studios here. And so she does have work featured in our shop and is incorporated into a lot of the work that we do. But we thought that this would be a nice way to kind of branch out and offer a little something else to other people. Yeah, and Becca just finished up a residency at 323 Clay in Independence, which is one of the few, art sort of pottery centers we have. And we kind of offered this position to her, knowing that she was in this transition, and we're super pleased that it worked out. So we're kind of working with her in tandem to make sure that this is a good fit for her and to make sure that this is the direction we want to go and that it's benefiting both of us. But it's nice to have more people join the party and be part of our community. So we also want to introduce you to 2 of our past interns so they can actually tell you in their words what the experience was like. And that's Warren and Roberto, who are students at Kansas City Art Institute.
I'm Warren Van Ryzen, and I'm a senior at the Kansas City Art Institute. And I'm Roberto Gomez, and I'm also a senior at the Kansas City Art Institute. We both internship for the Kansas City Urban Potters. What was great about it was the resources at the school. There's some of the urban potters that have classes there. When we were the semester before we interned for them, Rain Harris was teaching a class, and we had the opportunity of meeting her. It was when she was still part of KCUP, and she was like, "We are going to need an intern for the next year." It was really convenient, honestly, having Rain be our teacher and then being, "Hey, we need some interns," and we were very happy to help. What I was really interested in about interning for the Kansas City Urban Potters was really working with a group of local artists here in Kansas City that was really good. It was really special to be a part and helping with all of the events and just seeing a group of artists all work together in a single place is really something special. It was great to see each of them in their individual working space. They're all so different, and it was great to learn a little thing from Jan or a little thing from Meredith and a little thing from Erica and so on and so forth. But it was just applying some of those little practices that they have in their own studio into my own, or it's a great way to learn good work ethic and good work habits as well. And also seeing just the variety and how different each artist works was really awesome to see too. And then the business part of it, dealing with that, the pre-packaging or inventory week for that before NCCA started, it was pretty intense, but it was also so like amazing seeing work from other artists and handling work that, you know, isn't yours, and it's just like, you know, you gotta be like careful with it, but it was also really like fun, like to just see like
it was just really cool doing all this behind the scenes work that like you never really knew happened, and just being like a part of this bigger bigger event that was really special.
Since KCUP is like a working collaborative of artists, it was kind of interesting. One of the major projects that we both had to collaborate with was creating a cup for the Midwest Pottery Fest. It was
Little like small cups that were given out for the first 50 people who showed up, and we were in charge of like making the prototypes, making the molds for those prototypes,
glazing them, sanding them,
decaling them
as well. Having worked with this group of artists, it was a great experience. And then not only that, like within that last major event that we had to work was the Midwest Pottery Fest, and we also had a great opportunity of networking with other
along with working with these artists, we got to meet a bunch of other nationally recognized artists that we really wouldn't probably have the chance to like meet that close if we haven't really done this internship really.
Hey, welcome. This is our retail space, and each core member has a shelving unit display. Our curated table is in the middle, as well as like the window display as part of that show. Check out. And then, if you want to move past, the studios are back here. I'll let you go first. Camera. We have Chandra Debuse working. Hi. She's getting ready for show. That's D-Ray. The next spot is Becca Bliss, our newest artist in residence. And then the final and third studio is Alex Watson's. And beyond Alex's space is the kiln area. And on the other side, you know, good old sinks and whatnot. The necessary, you know, things for a ceramic studio. That's it.